We got to parent as if it's like a project of building a house, right? We're building it from scratch. And so we're not going to right away start with the roof and cover it up. We're going to know we got to lay a good foundation. And we got to add to it some walls. And we got to start building up this child. Again, they're not going to get everything all at once. We're going to build and we're going to stack and we're going to give them concepts and we're going to go into it knowing that mistakes are going to be made. What is the way that we should be looking at how we're raising kids? Okay. So those are temporary Band-Aid fixes. How do we actually shift our minds to where when our kids make a mistake, we don't see it as frustrating, angry, rage out, cover it with the Band-Aid, move forward. We instead look at it in a different way. And so the first way is in this concept of how do we lead our children, we have to look at and see how it is that God has kind of called us to lead our children. So I want us to look at Luke 15. Maybe you've seen this a different way. I'm going to change the focus a little bit. He says, if a man has 100 sheep and one of them gets lost, what's he going to do? Isn't he going to leave the 99 in the wilderness and go search for that one until he finds it? And he says when he's found it, he's going to joyfully carry it home on his shoulders. And when he arrives, he's going to call together all his friends, his neighbors. He's going to say, rejoice, I found that lost sheep. He says in the same way, there's so much joy in heaven over one lost sinner who repents and returns to God than over the 99 who are righteous and haven't strayed away. Your kids are sheep. If I could be honest with you, and if you got kids in here, you could cover their ears. Here's the thing. Kids are kind of dumb. Right? They're going to make dumb decisions their whole lives. Dude, teenagers, absolutely. Grown adults, absolutely. Kids make bad decisions all the time, right? But we need to look at it and say, when they're making those bad decisions, how do we, instead of raging out on them, how do we carry that sheep on our shoulders and bring them back into the fold? Because that's our job, is to bring those strayed, dumb sheep and do our best to bring them back into the fold and follow and align with what it is that God has for them. So the first thing we have to start looking at is that we got to start parenting with the process mentality, okay? We got to parent with the process mentality. That means that when they make their mistakes, and they will, it's when they make their mistakes, because they will, just like you. You're going to make your mistakes. So when they make those mistakes, it's not going to be a patch that you're going to be able to do that's going to fix them forever. They will likely, the odds are, they will make that mistake again. And so how do we lead them, rather than thinking it's a one-time deal, how do we lead them in this concept of it's an ongoing process? It's honestly the same way that you should be looking at your own life. As you've come to follow Christ, did you get it right away? Absolutely not, right? It was a process. And could you imagine that as you were going through that process, if you had somebody over your shoulder the whole time, and every time you came out of line, they were just like, hey, you screwed up again, you idiot. Wouldn't you after a while be like, dude, I'm cool. Like, I'm not going to make it. There's too much pressure. If this is what happens every time I make a mistake, there's no way. And after a while, you're going to start pushing away from that individual, right? Same concept with us. We should be parenting with the process. If they stray away, we should look at bringing correction, but in love and kindness, the same way God has done and the Holy Spirit has done in your life. Does that not mean there's consequences for your actions? Absolutely. But does it have to be done in rage and threats? Or can it just not be as simple as, kiddo, if you keep doing that, this is what's going to keep happening? It doesn't have to be rage and threats. It doesn't have to be with angst and anxiety and create this tension with you. It could just be as simple as an instruction of the sowing and reaping principles. Right? So again, parenting with the process mentality. You got to parent as if it's one unending conversation. This is my biggest hiccup because I don't know if you guys realize this. I love to talk. I'm a big fan of talking. And so I always think every time my child makes a mistake that I'm going to talk them out of it. Right? This one conversation is going to go about 4 hours, and I'm going to give you a breakdown of all the reasons why this isn't a great decision to make in the future. We're going to walk it out, and at the end of it, we're going to come to an agreement that we're not going to make this mistake again, and my 6-year-old is just trying not to eat her peas. Right? Like, that's sometimes what we do as parents. We overanalyze the situation. We feel like we have to have it all fixed now. But if instead you look at it as if your conversation is one unending, stackable conversation, that you're just leading them and guiding them through life, and you're going to be coming back to these conversations again and again. And trust me, for those of you guys who are grown, you know you're going to have this conversation when they're 5, when they're 15, when they're 25, when they're 35, when they're 45. That unending conversation is going to carry on through their whole life. That's what you signed up for as a parent. That's what you bought into, is one unending conversation. So don't feel like you have to fix it right then, and don't get disappointed if you had a conversation and they make that mistake again. Because you have to look at it in the same way. It's a process. So maybe they did it once that week, and maybe after the conversation they waited 2 weeks, and then they made that mistake. And then the next time it's 3 weeks. But we have to look at not necessarily the right here and now. We're looking at it with the big picture in mind. Okay? The third way that we have to parent is we got to parent with a project mentality. Right? We got to parent as if it's like a project of building a house, right? We're building it from scratch. And so we're not going to right away start with the roof and cover it up. We're going to know we got to lay a good foundation, and we got to add to it some walls, and we got to start building up this child. Again, they're not going to get everything all at once. We're going to build, and we're going to stack, and we're going to give them concepts, and we're going to go into it knowing that mistakes are going to be made, that we're going to have to potentially tear down a wall again and rebuild it anew. We're going to have to go into it that this is going to be an ongoing project throughout their lives, that we're constantly going to be coming back to the table to have these conversations, to have these moments, to help them get in their alignment with the Father. Okay? That's like our job. We got to quit looking at the short-term fixes that make us feel good at that moment because they listen out, they behave really well, but the problem is they're only doing that because you have the covering. And once your covering is removed and they're 18 to 29, it appears that they keep walking away from the Father because nothing led them to Him.